Welcome to the Blackmail Impact. Today we have as guest Mr. Derek Westbrook. Mr. Westbrook, welcome to the Blackmail Impact.
Thank you for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you here today. And for those who are here for the first time, my name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and I'm the founder of the Blackmail Impact. Today's conversation is around define conventional expectations, because for some of us, we are limited based on what we are have been told we can do. So that's what the conversation is going to be around about today. But before we get into the conversation or even introducing Mr. Westbrook, for those who are here with us, if you don't mind, please share this with your connection, this conversation with your connection. I know there will be things shared here that will be beneficial to you and to individuals you may be connected to. So please go ahead and share this conversation with your connection. I really appreciate it. And so let's go into what we are here for today. Mr. Westbrook is an educator. He have been in education for over 30 years, and that is really commendable. When we hear the constant um, searching for more black males in education, he also served in different capacities, from lecturer of Black Studies and African American history. He's also served as a consultant to help with the achievement gap. We know how important that is, especially to help students who sometimes fall behind. He's also, he's currently the director of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So, Mr. Westbrook, thanks for being here. But if you have anything else that you want to share with the listeners, before we get into the question, please go ahead and do so.
Oh, no, I think you covered it. I've been an educator for a long time. Education drew me uh, through higher education. I focused on Africana studies, Afro American studies and history and culture. And that brought me further into educational circles where I was able to get experiences teaching in higher education, graduate school, K through 12, prisons, in a variety of different places to get experience and to apply my trade. And um, then I turned around and tried to use that to help others. So I'm also doing consulting when and where I can within my community and with the networks that I'm building.
And that's important, especially helping with the achievement gap. And that is one thing that you constantly hear, especially in black male students sometimes fall behind. And what I've come to understand, it's not that they lack the cognitive ability, but sometimes their environment cause them to think less of themselves and what they're capable of. So it's not that they don't have what it takes, but sometimes they take on the belief of what society have placed on them. And hopefully we can get to talk about some of that during the conversation today, although the conversation is not really so much about what black male students are doing, but we may touch on that throughout the conversation. So, I'm going to start off the conversation with, personal journey and breaking the norm. Can you share your story and what led you to break away from traditional path?
Yes, I can say that I never really was exposed to a traditional path. For me, growing up in central New York, um, I was in a rural area, a rural suburban area, where at home we were the only black family, in this community. So um, on that end where I grew up was totally rural white America. And then when we went to church, or we went to, we would travel to church, and that was a black community, So I grew up in two worlds, and I was always passing between those two worlds. So I never really had a traditional experience growing up. I think I had a very non-traditional environment growing up, but I was fortunate enough to, I think, be in a family, in a community that was culturally aware and centered, um, where it was around the spiritual community, the Christian community,
Yeah.
and through our church, and also have the experience of being sort of dropped in a world that was pretty much all white and having to negotiate that world at the same time.
But did that have any impact on how you look at yourself, or did you think, based on looking at both worlds, what was possible for you? Any of that affect how you think about yourself?
Oh, most definitely. I think on at depending on what stage of life I was in, sometimes I felt a part of both worlds and sometimes I felt a part of neither.
Okay,
And I think you're always those identity struggles started early for
correct.
me, in terms of being such a young man and trying to figure out where I fit um in this world and not always fitting in because of my experiences were a little bit different. And
Correct.
so I had to um I developed a lot of self-reliance because I was often dealing with these things on my own, and I didn't really have a whole lot of people to talk to
Okay.
about what I was experiencing. So I was a very, I think, uh, I lived inside my head a lot, and I kept everything on the inside. I didn't learn how to reach out and connect in a communal fashion until I think later in life, when I was a little older.
Yeah, and just listening to you sharing, those both experiences, I recall W.E. Du Bois talked about, the double consciousness. It's like, we hear and then we see ourselves through the lens of others, based on our experience and based on where we are. But we're not going to get into the double consciousness now. That may come on later on, but I know, not say from experience, but um, I know how it is where you're in an environment and sometimes you don't feel as if you belong. My next question to you is, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when stepping outside of societal expectations?
Um, I think I was a good student. And I didn't start out that way. I think I was just riding the wave and sort of um, not raising any attention. But I wanted to prove to my mother in particular that I could get the grades that my sister was getting because she was a very straight A student. And but once I raised those expectations, it changed everything, and that would became the expectation in the household. And but when you're um, an A student and you're also an athlete, it I think people think of you as being outside of what they traditionally see a black male athlete as being the struggling academically to be well and doing well athletically. But when you break some of their preconceptions of you, people have a hard time trying to figure out um, where to put you.
Correct, correct.
So, a lot of people wanted you to shut up and dribble, so to speak, be an athlete
Mhm.
or be an academic, but don't be both. My coaches didn't like it when I took time off from football to explore all-state choir, which was, trying out for something that was artistic and
Correct,
coming back. And when you're multi facet and you're encouraged to be that way.
correct.
I think people have a problem trying to um, understand where you to fit you in a box. You don't get into those boxes. And I was tempted to figure out if I don't fit into these boxes, I got to find a pathway for myself. Um, and a lot of times it was uncharted territory. So I was like, okay, what do I want for myself and how do I focus in on what I want to do? And so that set me on my own journey looking for my own sets of challenges based on that.
Well, and that's a very interesting experience, because you're right. Athletes, they think you're supposed to be struggling academically, And because they think all you should be doing or focusing more on is the sports that you're playing. Well, sorry, I don't know if they think that's what you should be focusing on, but I think they don't really maybe have that expectation of student athletes, especially black males, to be excelling academically. And that can really affect the males. Sometimes they may want to suppress that part of them and just focus on being an athlete. And that can, because as an athlete you may not make it to the professional world, because some start out want to go to the professional world, but not realizing that that's not always a possibility. But with your experience, did you have more male students excelling at your time in academics and also sports, from your knowledge?
No, I think a lot of us saw sports as an escape. It was the one place where we were unfettered, and there was, by and large, a true meritocracy. Where you didn't have as many limitations as you had in other places. The expectations in sports were you for to excel. The expectation in the classroom, not so much. So people were shocked or surprised. And I think when as a black man, when you get that response to that shock and awe when you're doing something that you consider normal or excelling, and that you become a little distrustful, a little wary
Yeah.
of people's praise. Are you articulate because I am I articulate because you don't think I can speak, or do you think so you start second guessing yourself and the people around you in terms of do they really believe in my abilities, or are they, surprised by um, what I'm doing?
Well, and that's also interesting because you find some succumb to that limitation, or that standard, and stop excelling academically. As you talk about where you may start doubting yourself, and that is true because I've seen athletes, or I've seen black males especially, who are great academically but suppress that part because they want to fit in, they want to be accepted by those around them, and that can be a great challenge when it comes to you maximizing your own potential, especially as males. My next question to you is: was there a pivotal moment when you realized you had to forge your own path? What was that experience like?
Um, yes, I think early on, uh, I wanted to. I wanted to be in Olympics, and everything that my identity was around being an athlete, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And then I got hurt,
Oh,
and that injury changed everything. It was in my senior year. So I put a lot of stock in getting scholarships and being able to move on. And the only reason, to be honest with you, that I was good at academics is because it would get me a scholarship.
yeah.
I'd be considered for an academic scholarship to a D1 school or something like that. Fortunately, I was able to attain an academic scholarship. Um, and it's funny, I fell back on my academics, and that also allowed me to go to college. But it really made me rethink who I was as a person and what I wanted to get out of life. And now I said, okay, how do I forge this pathway for myself instead of trying to do what others expect? How can I make a pathway for myself? Um, I didn't want my parents, my mother in particular, to be burdened with paying for school, though she felt that was education is very important in our family, and she was definitely willing and ready to do that. I had a brother and sister who were also in school at the time. I wanted to be able to say I need to forge my own pathway and make sure that I'm making a contribution. And it was with that I began to shake off those shackles of thinking in terms of what um, people thought was the right pathway for me and following the sheep, I guess, or following the what everybody else was doing. And I was able to run across some mentors in school that um, challenged me in ways to think, and I learned through challenge, and I was very appreciative of those who challenged me. I wasn't one to shy away from that. I think sports cultivates a little of that in us. But I had some really good mentors who really pointed me in the right direction and forced me to grow, and I was really appreciative of that.
And that's a great experience to have, when you're on the journey, to have mentors, people who believe in you and want to challenge you to become what they believe you can be. But you said something that's important. You got injured and you didn't get to pursue the path that you want as an athlete. And we have a lot of young people, out here that need to realize that they can do both. And it's important that they do both because no one can guarantee what may happen, because you can go out on the field this moment and all the desire you have to play sport, just come to an end. Because you mentioned, you got injured and you couldn't go on to pursue sport. But luckily, you were really good academically. And that's one thing that we have to encourage our athletes, and especially our black males, because the same, what I get to find out is this: the same ability it takes to do well academically, it's the same thing for sports, because the habits you have to be disciplined, you have to be committed, and it's the same thing, for in the classroom for studies. You just have to transfer those skills, those habits into different areas, and you will get to excel in both areas. And that is something that I learned late, which I've then applied to my journey, because growing up, first I was just kind of focusing more on being an athlete. Not to say I was the best athlete, but I thought that was the only thing that I was good at until late on my journey. So I'm glad that you share that, because there are people out here that sometimes have males in their life, their sons, their mentees, their nephews, and stuff like that. That sometimes just going after this goal as an athlete and not realizing they can do both and can excel at both, because anything can happen. And even later on the journey, the academics will still come in handy. But that leads me to my next question: how did your upbringing shape your mindset about success and the rules you expect to follow?
Um, I had family members who had a very made a very strong investment in my character. You know, uh, I think it was important um, to develop character, and I think that you just mentioned sports. A lot of that, I said I had two big influences in my life, and that was one growing up in a church environment, and two growing up doing sports. So you get to put your faith into practice, so to speak. By in sport, you're able to put it on the line. You're able to test yourself, and you're being held accountable for your performance. And you know that what you put into it is what you get out of it. And uh, so sports definitely, I think, as you just alluded to earlier, it transfers over to everything
Correct.
else. When you have good coaches who allow you to make those connections.
Correct.
And for me, it was important to make that connection because uh, you learn skills and you learn to develop character that I don't think you can. It's very difficult to get in other places. You learn to work hard. You know that you're going to fail sometimes. You have to pick yourself back up and win. You go through all the anxiety of having to produce and perform in the moment and not choke and not bow to the pressure, but to embrace it. And you get to do that regularly. And although I didn't, my when you if you talk to me in the when I was in school, my goal when I was in high school, my goal was to be in the Olympics
Wow.
in 88, 92. with those injuries. I still did sports in college. I was a D3 athlete, though, which is a little bit different from going to a D1 school. But I stayed with sports because once you develop those habits, it's hard to let them go. You still want to train. And I went and told the coach, even though I'm here on an academic scholarship, I'll just train with the team. He goes, yeah, just train with the team, come out. And before you know it, I was running in meets. And so I got pulled back into that world. So I was able to still practice those skills. And I was a five-time All-American in D3, which I got that experience of competing at high levels in the sport and got to run across a lot of the people I watched on TV back in the day at the Milrose Games and other places. And it was good to be a part of that world. Um, but I definitely had a vision that was beyond the track,
Yeah.
um, but it included it as well. It helped me. They helped me find my way. So I always, keep to my background in sports and my background in my spirituality and my spiritual life, because both of those were critical to me, shaping me and making me the person that I am and giving me my character. I think everything else will come, but you can't teach character. You have to cultivate
Oh
it.
yeah, you got to. The environment that you're in really helps, but you have to cultivate it, and it's something that you have to keep, plugging yourself into, to maintain, that which is right and good for you as a individual. But as you talk about the character, the skills, the hard work, and not bowing to pressure, I remember there was an article that came out some years ago that CEOs were really gravitating to student athletes, because they find that they are better for the workplace, because of the things that they had to do or to endure as a student athlete. They know that these people are more self motivated. That's what the research stated: self-motivated, hardworking, more determined, more committed. But people have been saying student athletes weren't good prior to the research, because if you're an athlete, you're just good at sports. But they didn't realize those student athletes were developing characteristics that were really beneficial, to organization, and help organization to achieve their goals. So that article, and I think maybe more people have shared different research on the benefit of student athletes and how impactful they can be for an organization. But also here you said you won national championship 5 times, which is great. As a student athlete, you always want to have those accomplishments. So I'm going to switch a little bit from personal journey, to resilience and overcoming barriers. How did you navigate moments of doubt or fear when making unconventional choices? How did you overcome the doubts and fear on your journey?
um, well, it's funny because I said my background is, you know, when I contemplate these questions, I think about sports and I think about um, um, my spiritual life, and both of them have taught me about these things in terms of dealing with fear and overcoming. When I used to get to the starting line in the track, every doubt and every fear that I ever had would race through my mind when I was getting into the blocks as they're
Yeah,
giving the commands. Like everything in me would want to run away from that starting line and to not deal with this challenge and to walk away. But when that gun went off,
it's a different feeling.
you know, all that stuff went away,
Yep.
and all of a sudden you're just in the race. And that was a beautiful experience for me on so many levels, because it taught me that, you know, I need that trigger in life to snap me into overcoming my fears and moving forward. And we all need to figure out um, what is our strategy for dealing with the doubts and the nagging. things. I don't believe that a person is truly fearless um, in this world. I just think people are good. You know, you wouldn't need courage if you didn't have fear. You know, but you have fear, but you do it anyway. You
That's
know,
right.
and figuring out that process for oneself. Because we can watch 100 people be successful, but if we don't wrestle our fears into submission, seeing all those people be successful might not move us to try ourselves and to take that step. We literally have to go inside ourselves and think about um, what motivates us and what we're working towards and what we believe in, and the positives and the our values and the things that make us us have to outweigh all those negative detractions that you know the what ifs and what if we don't succeed, but what if we do? And holding on to the positive and really striving to be the best we can be, and knowing that deep down whatever's been put inside of us is there for a reason. You know,
Correct.
I truly believe that. And if these experiences, these environments, all of them have been put inside us to challenge us to become who we can be. And it's our chrysalis. It's our place where we grow and develop so that we can transform into something greater. And we need to always look for those positives and those teachers that are around us because they're there. We just have to have the mindset to look for them rather than focus on the negativity that also is there and can drag us down and give us a reason to quit. If we want a reason to quit, there's one around every corner.
Oh yeah.
But but if but holding to the course and standing together and moving forward, there's something beautiful about overcoming fear and succeeding. And I was appreciative that I learned that in my spiritual life, but I got to experience it in the sports, is overcoming struggles. Even when we lost, we pick ourselves up and we move forward and we win. We live to fight another day. And being involved in that process and standing with people who believe the same thing inspired me and made me want to be a better person.
Well, as I was listening to you talking about, especially the journey of track and field and overcoming fear, and you stated that the fear was there prior to going up to the line, and once the gun goes off, the fear goes away. But that's also important in life. Whatever we want to do, once we start, the fear we feel is going to disappear. But if we don't start, that fear will become stronger and become stronger, and then we end up doing nothing. But once we start, and that's a great experience as an athlete, because that once I start doing whatever I want to do, I'm not gonna feel how I feel now going into starting it. And that's where a lot of people, get stuck. They feel like, man, I don't think I can do this. How am I going to do this? And then they're going to stop themselves from going forward. So, and I think, as you mentioned, as you were talking, feel the fear and do it anyway, because the only cure for fear is to take action. If you do nothing, the fear is
Mhm.
going to stay.
Definitely. As you were saying, talking, I always say it's just commit. The fear is evidence of our lack of commitment. And when you commit and you put yourself wholeheartedly into something, there's no room for fear anymore. You know, all
Man.
there is success or drive toward the finish line. And that there's a beauty in committing to something and saying that this is I'm in it now. Win, lose, draw, I'm in it, and I'm going to give my best. And getting to that point where we can do that is, um, it's not about being the strongest. It's not about being the toughest. It's just about being willing. And willing to step up. And you don't have to be prepared. Everybody's waiting for for the moment to be prepared to do all these things.
Yeah,
Very few people in history were ever prepared for the position that they were in. You
correct,
just they just said, you know what? Somebody needs to step up. I'm gonna
correct.
fill the void and I'm gonna commit. And yeah, I look for that cultivation. I think that's why people gravitate toward people who are in athletes, people who are artists who perform in symphonies or on stage. You know, it's like I got to commit to this role. I got to commit
Right.
to what I'm doing and see it through and experience all there is to to experience from this because I'm going to grow one way or the other.
Oh yeah, man. It really takes commitment. You're not going to see any results really without the commitment. And the same thing, not just with athletes. There's a big thing now with those like personal trainers. At first they used to kind of look at them some type of way, but it takes discipline to develop those muscles. So now they are no more admired because of their commitment to make have their transformation and stuff like that. But commitment is really important when it comes to achieving any goal. That's just how life is. So which leads me to my next question, because once we're on this journey, once we have the desire to do something, there will be criticisms, there will be people who don't believe in whatever we choose to pursue. So, my next question to you is, how did you handle criticism or skepticism from others, especially from within your own community, if that happened? When you decide to go on your path to pursue being an athlete, academics, did you have people who doubted you?
Oh, most definitely. Um, when the naysayers are outside your community, it's easy to use that as fuel. You know, in fact, that's what I did early on. Oh, you said I can't. Now I'm going to prove you wrong. I was very motivated to prove those who didn't believe in me wrong. What I wasn't prepared for, and when you said dealing with criticism from within your community or within
Yeah,
people you care about, people who share your values, uh, that's different. I didn't deal with that well initially in my life at all because I wasn't expecting it to come from that direction. I was always expecting it to come from the direction of the people who did not believe in it.
correct.
When it came from home, it was a little bit different, and it causes you to soul search a bit and to think, you know, about what they have to say. And I think this is where mentorship and discipleship um, comes into view because I had people in my life that whose critique I looked for, because they were trying to build me up. I said, whenever a critique or a criticism is coming out of love or coming out of a space where they're trying to make you better, it's important to embrace that. When it's coming from a place where it's trying to tear you down or to dissuade you, then you have to, even if it's coming from within your family or community, you have to let that go. You can't allow that to carry that around. But I always say to my students, don't just listen to people who can tell you what to do. They should be able to tell you how to do it, and they should be able to show you. Meaning that, when I got criticism from people who were knowledgeable, who mentored me, they were able to show me how to overcome the challenge that was in front of me, or how to deal with their critique. Some people, all they want to do is tell you about yourself and how you're not
Correct.
good enough, and they can't help you fix anything, and that's draining, and you don't need that energy. You gotta, learn to challenge those who have a critique and say, okay, I'm willing to learn. What do you have to teach me?
Correct.
Because most people, if they have a critique for you or a criticism, it's when it's coming from a good place, they're trying to lead you to a better place,
Correct.
and they're worth listening to. We need those mentors, we need those coaches, we need those consultants in our lives, people who are there in our corner, who are going to give us an honest appraisal of what we're doing and how we're moving forward, and we should look for that and embrace that. But the other stuff we have to let go. There's always the armchair quarterbacks and the people who don't have any interest in us being successful, and sometimes they don't want to be successful themselves. They're mad at you for because you're making them feel bad about not doing what they should be doing, and they just want you to come back and sit down with them and not and not struggle and strive to realize your own greatness. So we got to let sometimes we got to let that go.
Oh yeah, they want to pull you back. But that's man, I really glad how you put it. With the people outside that you don't know that we don't know. We should use what they say as fuel to prove them wrong and prove ourselves right. But also, as you stated, with the people that's close to you that share your values or share our values, those are the criticism that really hurt. I heard Dean Sanders said recently, I was doing this work for the people that I love. And that's where the most hate came from, you know? And I was like, so many of us experience that because, once you decide that you're going to do something, that you're going to raise the bar, that you're going to become what society says you can't become, that means you have to do something different. And being that you're doing something different, you're going to challenge the norm. You're not going to operate within the status quo. And when you're not operating within the status quo, some of the people that's close to you may want to tell you, man, why are you doing that? You can't do that. You can't achieve that. How are you going to get there? You can't get there. You don't have no one to help you to get there. But it goes back to the point that you have made because sometimes they don't see themselves doing what you're doing and they don't believe they can achieve success. Now they want to project their limiting beliefs on you. And, as you stated, which is important. And for those who are listening, we have to learn to let go of
Mhm.
some of those relationships, some of those connections who want to limit us from becoming who we are supposed to be. And there will be people out there want to tell you, man, you are an overachiever. Why are you doing that? You're supposed to stay in your little corner and don't go after what you want. But you have to be reminded at times, and we all do have to be reminded that we can't allow those who don't have our best interests, especially as Black men, to pull us back and to pull us back into where we work ourselves from. And because if somebody, if one per by one person doing it, it will help others to do it. It's just like that poem that they said it's Nelson Mandela or Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, but once we become, we automatically help others to be because now they see that you are doing it. And because you're doing it despite the criticism, despite the hate, despite the jealousy, you overcome those challenges to be who you are and achieve the goal that you set for yourself. And that's a great reminder, man, because um, there are young people coming up sometimes, make the doubts of others stop them from achieving the goals that they want to achieve. And I'm just going to switch gear a little bit from resilience to, sorry, redefining success and impact. I think I had a question that I wanted to ask in resilience, but I'm going to go to redefining and success and impact. How do you define success? And how has that definition changed over time?
Well, I I think that I used to define success by getting the trappings of society or attaining the trappings of society that I thought we were supposed to get. A good job, um, lots of money, big house, those external things, those trappings were very important to me. Um, Not that they're less important now, but I know that to me, success now is um, being a fulfilled in person in between that. I want to know that I'm living the principles that I was taught, that I'm passing them on to my children, that I'm aware of the shoulders that I stand on in terms of my ancestry and the culture that I was taught, and that yeah, I'm living the life that makes me proud to walk. That everything that comes out of my mouth is in line with what I do and not a contradiction. That my character is strong. I can't um, there's that whole thing about what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul. I think it's very important to live from your inside out now,
Correct.
and to make sure that the principles and the character that you're developing within yourself, that you're able to say, I can stand and and walk in this no matter what the external circumstances are. The circumstances will change. Some days they'll be good, some days they'll be bad. But I want to be consistent because I know that consistency is what my family needs. That's what my friends need. And no matter what, they know that there's someone that they can count on that will walk their talk and live the life um, in the way that they find honorable. And I love walking with people who share those values and looking to see what we can create for the next generation. Because I think there's no greater security in this world than having a village of people who share your values and your goals and your character and who are supporting each other and achieving their dreams.
Man, that is really important and well said. And if I almost say, man, could you repeat it for those who may be sitting in the back and didn't hear? But what you shared, man, is really important. As you said, live from the inside out, and we must stand on our values, despite our environment, despite where we are. But as you alluded to, where you once thought, is to have the money, all those cars, everything outside. That's what constitutes success. But we have seen in our lifetime right now, and not only today, but before, without the foundation, without the values, you can have all the money and lose it because you didn't build what you're building on that foundation. And then it will come back around because you didn't do it with those values in time. It's like, you're just trying to get to the success by any means without, having your integrity or the honesty or how you go about doing it, which is really important. And that, whatever we're doing, we have to do it with the next generation in mind. And as you stated, man, we have so many people who have gone before us, who have done the right thing to make sure we could be where we are right now with the opportunities that we have. And in going forward, we also have to think about that, because that's important. Once we are building, and once that's what legacy is, and that's what success is. It's not so much the money. The money is good that you may pass on to your kids, your family, and stuff like that. But what the character that you have developed is much more valuable, for them, for those who are coming behind, because one, you don't want them to just have it; you want them to maintain whatever they have, and pass on good qualities and characteristics to the next generation. And when we connect to like-minded individuals who share similar values, the connection and what we're trying to build becomes much easier. And I think that's one of the challenges we have within our communities. We have the desires, we have the capabilities, we have the talent, we are creative, but yet we have challenges that we should have already passed because, we may come together, but we may not have the same values. And that's important when we want to create positive change. Sorry. So, man, I hope those who are listening can go back and listen to what you have just said, because that's important. Values are really, really important, with almost everything that you do in life. And one of my mentors would normally say, man, it doesn't matter where you are, you need to show up as you and make sure you are showing up as you. It doesn't matter what other people are doing, you need to show up in your character as the person you say or you have told the world that you are. Don't let what's happening around you make you change who you are, especially for the worse or just to fit in. Um, so man, I appreciate you sharing that reminder for those who are here listening with us. My next question to you is: what misconceptions do you think people have about success? Um, yeah, especially for Black men. So the misconception. I know you kind of shared it, that we need to have all this stuff. But what are some of the misconceptions do you think people have? When it comes to success for Black men.
I think that bootstrap mentality, that I have to do it all by myself. The hardest thing for many people, but especially Black men, is to lean on each other and to work with each other. We hear a lot of independence talk, when um, when it comes to doing these things, but the reality is that we're interdependent. No, we don't want to be dependent on others, but we do need to be interdependent. We work with each other. We're stronger together than we are apart. All of us are smarter than any one of us, so our collective work makes us uh, stronger, and we have to learn to stand together instead of standing individually apart. Separately we can easily be broken down, but together we're a much stronger group. And I think that that's a misconception that is taught in schools, because when you're taught in schools, you have a what I call a middle class mentality, where you're there to say, I got to be the one. I got to be the one that succeeds, the one that breaks out and defies the odds. But when you get out into the world and you see, um, and that goes in, I guess, in counter to if we grew up in a lower income, or uh, a place where we all were had to lean on each other because we we didn't have the resources. We sort of get moved away from that mentality. But when you go into the upper class and you see these um, folks and how they make money, excuse me, they often have investment groups, and they say, "Hey, I can make a lot of money by myself, but together as an investment group, boy, we can make money hand over fist." And they learn to work together and work collectively. So, um, you know, it pays to learn how to work together and to see how we can benefit each other as a group, because we tend to have stronger rewards than we can ever have apart. And it's important to get over that misconception that I know we want to stand out as individuals, but we're so much stronger when we stand together and stand out as a group.
And that is so important. And but well, that is so important. What I was going to ask is, when you try to, again, it goes with the values, because it's hard to work with those who don't share the values, because some people will see what you're doing, and because the values don't align, there may be conflicts there. But yeah, we do grow up in an environment where we think we need to do it by ourselves, and we think that's how success should be attained. But if we really sit back and look, you cannot, especially the success that you think you want, where you can be of benefit to the greater good, to help more people. You cannot get there by yourself, and that is one thing that we have to come to agreement with. And even if you get there, you want to get there with people who can help you to stand whatever challenges that may come at you, because once you start to rise, you may encounter challenges. But again, it goes back to what we shared earlier, what you shared earlier about the values. Working, with those individuals who share similar values, or those characteristics, because you want to make sure whatever you're building it with individuals who align with you, and align with the principles and characteristics that and values that you feel is important as an individual. So that is important. But that's one thing that we have to get away from, this independence. A lot of us have been conditioned to think that's how we should go about our goals. But if we want to really achieve at the highest level, we're going to have to work with others, connect with individuals, and share. spaces, share ideas and share resources. Again, because somebody may have something that you don't have, so that you can get to where you want, but you also to help that individual to get to where they want to be, because that's how it is, as you stated. Interdependent is better than being independent because it becomes a collective effort towards whatever goal we are pursuing. Which leads me to my next question. What unconventional strategies or habits have been key to your achievement? I know you talk about mentorship, I know you talk about discipleship, but what key strategies um, for your achievement?
Um, wow, there's two ways I'm gonna go with this. One is that when it comes to education, I always say we have to think with an investor mindset and not a debtor mindset. You know, a lot of times when people are trying to get education or further their education, all they're thinking about is how deep in debt they're going to go. But the best investment you can make is in yourself and in your education. So moving that mindset from a debtor mindset to a investor mindset, you start challenging those who are out there giving you your education to make sure that you're going to get a return on this investment. I'm putting in this time, I'm putting in this work. My expectation is that I'm getting a return on this investment as an investor. And if I don't get it, I'm going to be taking my business elsewhere. You know,
Correct.
like there are two different mentalities, and I think one helps you through the educational experience, and the other one always leaves you as a guest in someone else's house, you know, and you're never able to really develop the entrepreneurial mindset that you're going to need to leverage your education outside. And the other thing I used to always tell my students is, why are you here? And that's like looking in the mirror, you know, is that what's driving you from the inside? And I do believe in meditation and prayer. Pretty non-com. You know, no matter what your faith is, I'm not here to espouse anyone or push anyone in any direction. But I think it's important to meditate on the principles and the values that we hold true and to always stay connected to those because it's easy to lose our way or to get distracted um, by those who have a vested interest in us not achieving our goals. And it's important to not only just pray about it, but to literally meditate on the things that we want to do. I think um, keeping positive energy towards a goal, even when things don't look good, is important. And sometimes the only person who believes in you is you at the moment, and you have to, you know, go inside and steel yourself because nobody's there really to lift you up. You know, I'm thankful when I do have my community surrounding me, but at the end of the day, I have to go inside myself and make sure that I'm where I need to be um, for those around me, so that I'm consistent in what I say and do, and that I don't miss my opportunity because I am losing faith on the inside. So
Right.
definitely want to continue to keep it positive, meditate even in the face of negativity, meditate on the things that are going to push us forward in those goals and hold to those um, things and invest in yourself and bet on your community is the best thing you can do is to invest in people who share your values and hold to it.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Invest in self is critically important, because once you become, well, the investments you make in yourself and make you better. Despite what's going on, they can't really take that away from you unless you allow it, because you already put that investment in yourself. But a great reminder, as you stated, once we are going on a path, through school, whatever, wherever we are pursuing whatever information or education knowledge, we should be thinking about the return on investment. How will this help me to become the person I want to be? How will this help me to make the impact that I want to make? How will this help me, to change my life and help my family and help my community? Because that's important, because you don't want to just, go and pursue something, but you think about it, as you stated, with an investor mindset. And I think that's important, Whatever we pursue, I think that's important. And that's something that our community really needs to think about. How will this help me and help my family and help my community by pursuing this path or this knowledge or this education? That's a great reminder. And I'm going to ask another question, somewhat similar to what I just shared, but sorry. The question that I want to ask is how, how have you used your success to empower others, particularly young Black men?
Um, as an educator, it's sort of baked into the system. We're here to reproduce and refine the best of who we are.
Correct.
And so um, I always say that we're um, creating our own colleagues in a lot of ways, educators. So the young black men and black folks and that are coming into would come through my classes or come through my programs. It's helping them find themselves and find answers to their questions, not have them be what I want them to be
Yeah,
or what
yeah.
I think they should be, but having them go through that process of finding themselves and finding what they want to do and committing to. And it's a very rewarding process to watch these young people grow and take on the world. And when they come back and tell you what they are, they become your future colleagues. And you're like,
Correct.
hey, um, you know, they become people that you rely on to make things happen in the world. And um, I've had 30 years of this, so some of my students are grown and their kids are in school now and grown, and it's nice to be able to look at them and see that we can have an impact in um, how we intervene in each other's lives makes a difference. And when people are out there that they can push the ball down the field, even if it's for their family or their immediate community, but they can be of service to the greater community. And I've been blessed to be a part of it, and you'll want to continue to do it until someone sits me down and says I can't do this anymore.
That's right. That's right. And man, that's great. And for you to be, in that space and to have seen, young people, have their own transformation and develop in the person that they want to be. It's always great, knowing that, whatever you contributed, help someone to be better. And that's what we're here for, to make that impact, to help those who we come in contact with to be better, and having students, especially those individuals who we are entrusted to teach, to educate, get the most out of that experience. And it's just great to see individuals experiencing that transformation. But as a black male in the classroom, I think it doesn't only, which this is not what I'm saying, this is what research have said, it benefit all students, not only black students, white
Mhm.
students. I think, black men in the classroom really have a tremendous impact. And for those institutions out there, who may be having challenges with the achievement gap, may need to get more black men in those spaces. Now I'm here advocating for more black teachers to be in the classroom, but that's what research have stated. Where having black males, yes, it helps increase the academic performance of black male students, but it also help with the overall academic achievement of all students. So I just wanted to say that, before I get to the next question, because we're getting close to the end of today's conversation. I know we weren't going to get to all the questions, but well, before I ask this question, where can the listeners find you, support you, or even to get to talk to you more about what you're doing? I know we haven't talked about Black studies. That could be a talk for another conversation, because I think that is important. It's important that we get to learn about our experience, and how those experiences may be beneficial to us today, and what we can learn from the past to benefit us in the present. So maybe we have a conversation on Black studies sometime in the future. But where can the listeners find you and support you, or get to talk to you more about some of the things that you are doing and have done?
Oh, well, the easiest way to find me is probably by LinkedIn and Facebook. I am Derek Westbrook. I think I'm the only one with that name. There's some other guy, but I think he's a golfer who's white, so you easy to tell apart. But I'm out there, and I'm usually publishing things there, and I usually talk about what activities I'm up to or where I'm going next from there. And I love to engage in questions and debates. Quite frequently. And given the current climate in our society,
Yeah.
people have been asking more and more questions about history and how it's impacting this current moment and things and how we need to reflect on those things. So yeah, I'm easily found on social media networks, so LinkedIn, especially in Facebook. I have pages on TikTok and Instagram, but to be honest, I have not started uploading content there.
Okay.
I mainly stick to LinkedIn and Facebook.
Facebook. Man, that's great. And I tell you, that's one thing that I know I may have to reach back out to you, especially on the history and how that may affect us today, or maybe it can benefit us today. What we can learn from the past that will be beneficial to us as we go forward. So, my final question to you is, what advice would you give to young Black men who feel pressure to conform to traditional expectations?
Um, One thing I would say is that the system was not designed or built with you in mind. So don't worry about what that system is telling you, because it wasn't designed for your success. You
Okay.
know, it is okay to create your own world and design a world for yourself and rely on who you are. And the first thing we have to do is love ourselves and share that love with each other and not think it is soft to be a loving individual and to care for each other and each other's invest in each other is where the source of our strength is. And another thing I would tell young Black men is that we need to learn how to grieve. I know my our brother Jason Wilson is out there beating that drum right now, and it's
Oh yeah.
very important. But learning how to let go and grieve um, and to maintain relationships in a healthy way, and especially with ourselves, is very important. And sometimes. Um, when we don't have that ability to let go of things, it makes it hard for us to reattach. And we were talking earlier about our ability to unify or to work with each other. A lot of the times that we can't walk together because we had a disagreement or we didn't get along at one point, and that shouldn't undermine the bigger picture or the our commitment to the bigger values. Our personalities should never get in the way of the principles that we hold. It's very important that we learn to um, meet each other where we can and where we can, um, and to support each other moving forward. So love yourself, share love with each other, and stand on those principles that are inside. Um, just don't let your emotions rule or control you. Learn to express yourself and grieve and let go when necessary.
Man, that's well said, well said, and well said, I should say. From loving oneself, care for each other. But I really like this that you stated. We should not let our personality get involved with principle, because we're going to have different experiences on our journey,
Mhm.
but the principles are there, so we should not let what we experience mess with the principles that we establish, knowing that those principles can help us to move forward, not just as individual, but collectively. But Mr. Westbrook, Man, it is a pleasure, having you here on the Black Male Impact today. Great conversation, great insight and perspective. So I just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work that you're doing. You're on that wall, and I appreciate you, and I support you in whatever uh, initiatives that you're working on. And if I could be of any assistance, definitely don't hesitate to reach out.
Most definitely. Thank you very much. And for the listeners who are here, thanks again for being here with us. The Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. We bring guests that we believe will share insights and perspective that we all can benefit from as we continue on our journey. Thanks again for being here with us.